And welcome once again to another edition of Community Cop with your bad self. Hotep family, my name is Noah Lita. I'm one of the co-founder members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. I'm here today with only one of my co-hosts, Michael Graves, a.k.a. Big Mike.
Namaste.
And we'd like to welcome you, our viewing audience, to what we hope to be another informative edition of Community Cop where truth and real talk occurs. Straight off the back, as is customary. Oh, unfortunately, Julian and Father Lucas won't be with us today. They were on a Community Cop assignment, and hopefully they'll be joining us once again next week. We like to do a special shout-out to all our viewers in the Bronx. We find out that we're now live in the Bronx once again. We were down for a couple of minutes, so now our family in the Bronx have an opportunity to catch Community Cop live as well. And for those of you who don't know, if you missed a program, we've been able to put some of the programs on YouTube.
Right.
So if you do miss it, you can catch us on YouTube. Just punch up Community Cop and look for the exact date. All right, fast forward to our historical piece. We have to start off with Juneteenth. Reminding our viewing audience about Juneteenth.
Well, Juneteenth is important, and certainly I've heard those that get into debates whether Juneteenth is a holiday or not, or should we even recognize it at all. And I say to them, if you have 250,000 people that look like you in Texas and they receive their freedom, that's something worthy of note. And so we also have to remember that they give us the story, that they got the word. In other words, they got the information that we were free on June 19th of 1865. That's not true. These are revisionist historians who tell you that. The truth of the matter is that black soldiers had to go into Texas because the state of Texas refused to free the black people as if it was on a part of America, the United States, that had just engaged in a civil war that cost over 630,000 people their lives. So it was the black soldiers, some of who you call Buffalo soldiers, 9th and 10th Cavalry, along with others, that marched strong into Texas, and these Confederates who had left Louisiana and so many other different parts, South Carolina, Mississippi, and all these places, and collaborated in Texas for their last stand. They claimed that they was going to defeat any army that came into Texas, invaded Texas, their words. And those black soldiers, when they saw them black soldiers running strong directly at them, they ran like the cowards. The Confederates ran like the cowards that they are then and that they are to this very day. They ran. They had the opportunity to fight for what they believed in. If they believed in slavery, then they had to. They should have defended that principle. They chose to run like the cowards they are, and some of them ran as far away as Arizona, and that's why Arizona has those Confederate tendencies to this very day, because the large influx of Confederate soldiers who ran into Arizona, Phoenix, and other places because they were just scared to fight head on these black soldiers because they were so used to beating and whipping black people. Once they saw black folks with guns in their hands, they just couldn't handle it, so they ran like cowards.
So in other words, it was even Steven.
Oh, yeah, well, they don't want even Steven. It's always 10-1. They like those odds, and they feel you're not fighting fair when you got a gun and they got a gun. So, that old saying that, Grandma used to say it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. So everybody want to go rabbit hunting when they got the gun, but when the rabbit got a gun too, now you're not too. You rather eat some chicken or something else. You don't want rabbit.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you for that explanation of Juneteenth, a holiday that many in our community throughout the nation celebrates, the liberation of African Americans by African Americans in Texas.
That's right.
Fast forward, it was a tragic event that happened in Charleston, where members of our community were murdered while they were worshiping. Why don't you remind?
Well, we all know about Charleston, Mother Emanuel AME, Zion Church, where 3 years ago Dylan Roof interrupted a Bible study service where people were in the midst of praying and praising the Lord. And he chose to, as the coward that he is, to use that time, knowing full well that those 9 people did not have weapons. They were there to praise the Lord. And he chose there to take his action and to pull out a semi-automatic weapon and to unload and kill 9 people. Among them was the pastor and elected official. It was just a cowardly act for such a great historical church with so many, not only did it have a long civil rights history, but it also was a part of insurrections during the time of enslavement of African people. So it has a long, glorious history. And he knew that history and knew how significant that church was. So he chose to wage this war of white supremacy there, but it was the act of a coward because he brought a gun into a service where people were merely praising God.
Right. And the final thing was another unfortunate event that happened in Brooklyn. Willie Turks was murdered. Why don't you remind our family about that? Yeah, well,
Willie Turks was the black MTA worker who, along with 2 co-workers, were jumped by a mob somewhere between 12 and 20 guys, white guys, who moved on them because once they got off work over there at Avenue X in the Sheepshead Bay area, they stopped for a bagel and a beverage. And at that point, they were attacked, viciously attacked, and they was able to get, Willie Turks in particular, was able to get to his vehicle, but they dragged him out of the vehicle and beat him and stomped him to death. The other 2 people were beaten, seriously beaten, but they didn't die. So they was able to tell a story, and of course, you had Koch just saying that this was ill affected all New Yorkers. It didn't. It affected blacks and blacks solely, and so the police commissioner at that time, McGuire, had put together a 25-man task force to find the guy Gino Bova, and he was eventually found. But in any event, all of those people who participated in the beating, they were not prosecuted. Again, we didn't receive justice, and unfortunately, a black man, 34 years old, just coming off work, was killed. He was not a criminal. He was an MTA worker, and he was killed. So we shouldn't forget Willie Turks.
Right, and that was can be considered a northern lynching.
Right.
Another old story that we dealt with in the past in Chicago, where Brother McDonald was murdered by Officer Jason Van Dyke. Some of you may remember this incident occurred when the mayor of Chicago and the government of Chicago suppressed the information for about 15 months until after he was elected.
Right.
And then that information was released. The reason why I'm talking about it now is the trial is due to come up, I think, this summer. And one of the things that the Van Dyke's team is, let me remind some of you who may have forgotten, he was Brother McDonald was walking the street, allegedly had a knife in his hand, and Officer Van Dyke alleges that Brother McDonald charged at him with the knife, so he released 16 rounds at this brother, hit him 9 times, and all the shots were in the back. Little did he know there was a video camera off of the police vehicle which captured the whole thing, which showed that Van Dyke lied.
Right.
That there was no charge at him, that he was never threatened, neither him or any other officer. That's why he's presently being charged with first-degree murder. But there's so many things about this particular case that's problematic. Now the team is attempting to get the trial moved out of Chicago into one of the upstate counties. Some of the tactics that was similarly used by the murderers of Amadou Diallo. You may remember Amadou Diallo was killed in the Bronx, but his legal team successfully got the trial moved up to Albany,
right,
where he ultimately was vindicated. Many of these officers know that there's a whole lot of sympathy within the white community when a black individual is murdered by a police officer. So therefore, the strategy of these police officers is not to have the trial where they work at, what their geographical area of employment is. They want to move to some lily white neighborhood where they may live, or just predominantly occupied by white people, because they know that they would have more sympathy, regardless of what the video camera shows, Rodney King, regardless what the facts are, Amadou Diallo. So that's what his team is presently attempting to do. You think he'll be successful? And if he's successful moving the trial out of Chicago, do you think there's a probability that we will see justice in this case.
Well, I don't know if he will be successful with respect to...
And this is the shooter right there that was just on the TV. The officer was even shooting at Brother McDonald when he was down on the ground.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I would say I don't know how successful he will be at the change of venue. What I do know is that the police department was in lockstep behind Van Dyke, and you know that it was more than a half dozen other police officers with Van Dyke when he chose to pull out his weapon. No one else pulled out his weapon because he was walking away from the police officers, McDonald, in question. However, he chose to pull out his weapon. The other police officers didn't, because he was walking away from them in the middle of the street. And so not only did that happen, but I'm just saying that the change of venue, you know, who knows, because these police officers actively, after the shooting, once they discovered that it was Wendy's or Burger King, one of these,
Burger King.
That had a Burger video. King that had the video, they went in there and pulled the video. Now, they must have gotten that video that we saw from somewhere else, because they altered the video that was in Burger King. So that only shows you that not only were these police officers guilty of lying, but they're also a part of a conspiracy.
That's right.
So that's an additional charge to conspire to avoid justice and to obliterate any fair and above board investigation. So they consequently did that. And then you had the mayor,
Emanuel.
Rahm Emanuel, who kept this out of public view for well over a year and change, and only once a federal judge, after the family's insistence, a judge heard the case, and he finally said, look, you have to show the video. And once that video was produced, because once they got that video that showed clearly that McDonald was killed, it was totally unnecessary. Now at that point, he held it, saying that for public policy, for public concerns with respect to so-called riots, what we consider rebellions, he decided not to show it. But unfortunately, fortunately, what happened is the judge overruled them and demanded that it be seen. So the family was able to view it, and then after that, everyone else was able to view it.
And what was really, really, really problematic about this whole instance, it was so many angles. As you said, the police department recovered a video camera from Burger King. About 29 minutes of that video was erased. The mayor suppressed the information, the facts of this particular case. The district attorney, for 15, 16 months, had the video camera. She had the tape that we ultimately seen, where you see that the young man's actions contradict what the police officer said. No one was in threat of serious physical injury or death. The young man didn't lunge at anybody, as police officers, no more than one, claimed. So this was a conspiracy, but the district attorney had the video camera in their possession for months, and they only made arrests after the judge forced it to be released to the public, and there was no opportunity for the mayor or the district attorney or the police unions to cover up what happened. Once everyone's seen it, and they seen that the police officers say he's not threatening anybody. Look at the bullets hitting the ground after he's even on the ground. Mm-hmm. And he stopped firing, the officer stopped firing, and then he proceeded firing again. But once the judge ordered the film to go public, that's when the officer was arrested. Like within days after the film, the video was released, and the district attorney should have locked him up. So we'll see if there's going to be a conviction. We'll see if there's a successful attempt by the police officer to move it to a lily white neighbor community, so the jurist will be, really his from his community. But we'll see. But the video doesn't lie. There was no lunging. It's a clear contradiction with what the police officer claims initially, before anyone thought the video would go public.
And just one note about white juries. We have seen, not only the Diallo case, but we've seen it in other cases where the jury actually saw the video. In one instance, you had a young woman, a white woman, 18 years old, whose boyfriend was black, He was 18, and she brought him to her house to meet her father, who was a retired police officer. And actually, he extended his hand to shake her father's hand. The father pulled out a weapon and blew his brains out right on the spot. She testified that her father killed her boyfriend because he was black, and it took 3 trials to convict him. And even in other trials where people actually saw the video footage, whether it was with police officer Shelby in Oklahoma, how she was able to beat it. Other jurors admitted it, the one in South Carolina, when the man was walking away, but it was the Dominican brother who actually, in the Scott case, where the Dominican brother put the video there, risking deportation, but he had to do it. In those cases, the white jurors even said, I saw it, but I could not send the police officer to jail. Right. And they admitted that they saw it and saw that this brother was just walking away. And so there was no fear for the life that the police officers claimed in these cases. But white jurors, they know traditionally, will not put a white police officer in jail for killing a black man.
That's right. All right. Fast forward. There was another incident that happened where a manager brandished a noose. What state did this happen?
In Memphis.
In Memphis. Update our community.
Yeah, in Memphis, Tennessee, a manager at AT&T warehouse, he actually took a noose and aimed it had it already formed in the form of a noose, the rope, and he aimed it at 2 black managers that he was upset with, and this was witnessed by all of these co-workers who were there. 95% of that plant is black, and they saw it, and yet nothing has been done by AT&T. And I know some of you out here utilize AT&T services. They did absolutely nothing. They claim they did an investigation. They didn't come up with anything. And it's that age-old thing that it doesn't matter if you can prove racism. It does not matter how well you can prove it. If you don't have a white person to verify with you that this person is a racist, this person did it, it doesn't matter how many black people saw it. They removed the video footage because they had the video footage right there in the warehouse showing him doing it, but he was able to do whatever. So in any event, based on the testimony of all the people that saw it, AT&T management has said they don't have any evidence to show that anything happened.
All right, and we'll see. Is that case over, or is this still?
No, it's not over. They just did the reason why it's in the news is because they just did a big protest in Memphis this past Friday, and they said they're going to do it again and again. They're going to continue protesting to bring, to bring that to the fore of what this guy did, so that he's bringing it to light, But again, it doesn't matter how many black people, it doesn't matter how good your record is. If you say that a white person did something and you don't have a white person to say you did it, you might be in trouble.
All right. One story that we did cover last week was the mayor's decision to do away with testing, some of the testing that the entrance exams for some of the so-called most renowned high schools in New York, including Stuyvesant High School, Bronx High School of Science, Brooklyn Tech, et cetera, because there's a lack of racial diversity in these particular schools. The mayor stated that he wanted to do away with the entrance exam. Of course, those individuals who disproportionately make up the student body of these schools, the Asian community and members of the white community, are protesting. And this week, the mayor's son came forward in an op-ed that was published in one of the local newspapers, saying that even when he was in one of these so-called prestigious schools, he was a victim of racial discrimination, where Asian students were making racial and derogatory comments to African-American students, where teachers mocked African-American students that stated they wanted to be doctors. This is something that I remember reading in the autobiography of Malcolm X, when he told his teacher that he wanted to be a particular profession, and she told him, no, you can't be that. Here in 2018, some of the same things are going on in our local schools. So even the mayor's son stated that when he was a student, and now I think he's in Princeton, that he was always made to feel by the Asian students that he didn't deserve to be in this particular school solely because he was black. Not only him, but all the other black students as well. So there's going to be a special this Wednesday that discuss some of the decision that the mayor is attempting to do in doing away with the entrance exam, and whether or not the entrance exam should be reflective of who should belong to these schools and who shouldn't. We did something last week, talked about these particular exams, how they have inherent racial bias in them, how certain students who have affluence can prepare for them, can get tutored for them, that these exams do not represent what a student has learned from the 1st to the 8th grade. These exams, in order to be very successful in them, you have to just study to pass this particular exam. Some people have access to that information and others don't. That's what really makes it unfair, and unnecessary in my judgment to be a determinant of who belongs to these, privileged schools. Did you want to comment on that?
No, yeah, I think you were thorough.
Okay, now talk about the health inspector.
Well, here's what there's a white man, and this is where we talking about exactly. This is in Pasadena, California. I was just gonna say California. Pasadena, California. A 33-year-old sister who was on vacation. She's from Texas. She was vacationing in California with her 5-year-old daughter. They were poolside, getting ready to go into the pool. A white man comes out of nowhere pretending to be a health inspector. He was not a health inspector, and asked her that her and her daughter take a shower before they would get into the pool. Now, he didn't ask any other, the white people that was poolside, did they take a shower. He asked her, and she was concerned as to why you even asked me that. And of course, his response was, well, people get diseases in pools, and we don't want a health inspector or someone else, the health department, to shut the pool down. So, that's why he was saying she walked all the way to the other end of the pool, and this guy actually followed her and asked her again, did she take a shower, because he's concerned about spreading diseases. And at that point, of course, she told him that it doesn't matter how hard I scrub my entire body or my daughter's body, we're going to be black, because she understood that he was concerned that black people were getting ready to get into the pool. So she paid in that hotel the same rate that everybody else is paying, and she was on vacation, yet a white person had their audacity. And so their language, there did come a time where the manager came out. Somebody called the manager. The manager came out, and he lightly threatened about calling the police. He should have called the police instead of threatening to call the police. Then he pulled the white guy to the side, and they whispered. So when the police eventually got there, the guy claimed that this was, he don't know who the guy was. A guy was just talking, but he knows full well that guy was part of the hotel, that he was in the hotel like everybody else, and that he didn't want a black person going into the pool, and he waited. Obviously, he didn't want that person arrested, and said he doesn't know who it was after the fact. But the sister understood full well that the manager was looking out for the white guy and didn't want him to be arrested.
These are the jabs that that we're having to face. Men, women, and children throughout the country, and we find that this is occurring more and more. And
this can traumatize a 5-year-old who thinks she's less than, because she does not have a right to get into the pool. So that just affecting her mentality. So hopefully, that also shows that there's a weakness among our people. We're not standing the way we're supposed to stand, because no white man should feel that he has the right to approach his sister and say anything to her, and at least something that disrespectful.
And not only can it affect her, but trust me, it is going to affect her. This is an experience that this young lady will remember for her entire life. It was unnecessary. It shouldn't happen. It didn't have to happen. And that individual who was a perpetrator in this particular case should pay for it. Going back to what I said about the mayor, the exact quote. Now, this is the mayor's son, who was one of these prestigious schools. He said that white and Asian students use racial slurs to bully black students. This is the mayor's son saying this, and then there's a group of alumni, black alumni from these particular schools, that decided to write a blog because all these Asian and European parents are organizing to stop this school from being integrated. But this is what the mayor's son said, who accepted. He said that white and Asian students, both white and Asians, I'm telling you, and we talked about it last week, we have no friends, we have no allies but ourselves, and use racial slurs to bully black kids. He says, and he recalled when faculty members were told that they were being bullied, they would be called racially insensitive and racial slurs. The black students' complaint was ignored by the white faculty, at that particular school. They were frequently called monkeys and the N-word. This is the mayor's son saying this. This is not us. So that school definitely needs to be integrated. And one of the reasons why he believes this happens is because the school staff and the school population is segregated, mostly Asian and whites, and it has a lack of black and Latino. But the hostility that our children unnecessarily have to face in this particular school is unconscionable. This is New York City. We have no friends in the Asian community, and we have to understand that. Real quick, my sister sent me a story, a note about something that everyone is talking about. The president has decided to separate children from their parents, of the immigrants that come into this country. And, we're going to put it out there when we open up the phones to see if some of you want to talk about that. I personally believe it's a very unfortunate set of circumstances that the president has decided to do. His claim is, listen, if you don't want us to separate you from your children, don't come into our country illegally, and this won't happen. Some people agree with that as the president's popularity percentage is supposed to be rising. Yeah, so evidently he has some fans. Do you have anything to say? My particular point on that is it's unconscionable, it's wrong, but I'm not going to join any protests because some of these same immigrants, once they become citizens in this country, will do just like these Asians in those particular schools and turn their back on us. I'm ready, prepared to defend and articulate and to address issues that mainly affect our community, period. But what do you feel about this particular situation?
Well, I would say that certainly I don't fault Latinos for organizing in their best interests. I would say that we need to do the same. ACS here in New York City has been taking black children from their mothers and their fathers for years.
Illegally.
Yeah, illegally for anything from going into a house and seeing a pipe leaking under the sink, a light bulb fixture being out, cracks in the walls, anything, kids sharing a bed, as if some of us didn't grow up sharing our bed with our brother or sister or something like that. And they utilize the smallest of things and take the kid out of that house. So I'd say that we need to keep our eye on the prize and not be distracted what's happening to others because we all we got. And so we need to look at our situation, and ACS and Child Services all over the country is doing the same thing. It's not only happening here in New York City, it's going on all over the country. They got black kids in foster care that's being given to white parents. They have black children that are being given to gay couples, and they would never send take white children and give them to openly gay males or openly gay females, but they're taking them and taking black children and giving them to gay couples.
And that particular picture that you showed was a young child, a parent being accosted by the ICE, a representative of ICE, and probably taken into custody and separated from his mother. As we said, is no justification, in my opinion, for the separation of parents, regardless of whether or not they enter into country legally or illegally. I think it's reprehensible. I think because there's no moral fiber within the president and his supporters, then he doesn't see anything wrong with it. But we'll see how that winds up. Go ahead.
I got one right before we go to the phones. I know it's that time. There was a situation in Chicago where two young men were shot. EMS came on the scene, And when EMS came on the scene, this young man, they just saw him, and he was bleeding profusely from his head. He had several shots in his head. So they took a sheet, they walked up to him and put a sheet over his body and went to the next person. So PD was there. When PD got there, they were dealing with this other person. A police officer noticed that the person under the sheet was moving. And then they had to go back over there because the police officers told these emergency medical technicians that this guy's alive. So that shows you the blatant disrespect of our people. As a trained medical professional, you know full well, because even law enforcement knows, that you check a pulse, you check to see if the person is breathing, or you check the carotid artery. There are a lot of ways you can check to see if a person is alive. They did none of them. They just saw blood profusely coming out of this young man's head and assumed he was dead, and took a sheet, put it over him, and then walked down a ways to the other person and left him there until he started moving. They dealt with the other person who was actually shot and I think killed anyway, and they were just ignoring things until his body started moving, and the police officer had to yell to EMS that the person was alive. So that just shows you the blatant disrespect they have when they see a black person.
And as you stated in all the stories that we cover, it happens more and more. And these are professionals. They're supposed to be professionals. Real quick, before we go to our phone calls, there's a new mural that was painted at the Edison Hotel right here in New York City. The Edison Hotel, which is located at on West 47th Street. The artist's name was Arnie Charnick. Artie Charnick, and it's a mural that he painted, and within this mural that he painted, he had a portion of a black man in the garbage can, and then he had the words written, and this right here in New York City. He had the words painted over the garbage is, "This is where trash belongs." And some of the workers in the hotel, the black workers in the hotel, as they were looking at the mural, they seen that. And he had it in a different language, the words, and they interpreted and they found out what it meant. They approached the hotel management, and hotel management had the artist just cross those words out. Now, the black man is still in the garbage can, which is inexplicable. But this is just some of the blatant racism, some of the unconscionable insults that African Americans have to face at the hands of these diabolical, and we'll leave it at that. But that's a quick story I just wanted to bring up to show from the sisters who went in the pool and were disrespected by a white male, to all the other stories that we talk about Willie Turks being killed in Brooklyn, to this. It continues, the assault on our consciousness, on our bodies, it continues, and that's why we had to forever protest. But we have phone lines open. Hopefully they're working today. First caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Brooklyn.
First caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Uh-oh, we can't hear out here.
We can't hear out here.
I'm calling from Brooklyn. I can hear you.
All right. We'll try. Unfortunately, we can't hear
I can hear you.
Callers. Hold on, caller. We have our technicians trying to figure out the problem.
Okay.
As we attempt to rectify it, because we want to hear from you. The comments from our callers is always one of the best part of the program. But now, we talked about a couple of instances where our community is consistently being disrespected, smirked, and then when we bring it to the attention of those in authority, they attempt to belittle or just to dismiss, these accusations. What do you think it's going to take? Now, like I said, as it relates to the incident that's happening in regards to immigrants being separated from their children, you see congressmen, you see senators, you see business individuals, you see celebrities raising their voice of outrage over what's happening to the children of immigrants, as they should. But as you stated, we have ACS, not only in New York City, but throughout the country. We have child services. We have the penal system oppression our children. You had judges being paid to incarcerate young people. We know that young children in our community are being sentenced, first-time offenders to long and unfair sentences disproportionately to other groups. Our children are being bombarded, but we don't see that same level of outrage as the children of immigrants. And the children of immigrants, there should be outrage if they're being mistreated.
Well, look, when it comes to us, we don't have a year or 6 months during this Reagan administration to talk about a child being separated from his mother. We have centuries of oppression to prove that to a white person it's always been legal to separate mother from child, firstborn, secondborn, thirdborn. It didn't matter. This was always done. So this is nothing new.
Right. All right, caller. Hopefully we have our phones up. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Brooklyn.
Okay, Brooklyn. Quick question or comment, brother?
Oh, yes, that photo doesn't tell the whole story. That mother just set her child down so she could be searched. That's all. The child wasn't taken away from her. This is propaganda. And furthermore, why are our politicians, Hakeem Jeffries, running down there when our children are being insulted all the time? And one more thing about these Latinos and Asians. When I worked for St. Vincent Hospital, the hospital closed. The union sent us to Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan to be interviewed. We were interviewed by all Spanish, Hispanic, Latino supervisors and managers. They hired 50 workers. Out of 50 workers, 47 were Spanish. So that's what's going on in America. And why should we support these people coming in when you got veterans and homeless sleeping in the street? Give that money to them. And another thing, when I go shopping, I see these illegals with 2 shopping carts full of food, and they get to the register, they spend like $600 in food stamps. So that's going on all over America.
Right. All right. Thank you for your call, brother. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Greetings, brother. Calling from Harlem.
Okay, Harlem. Quick question or comment?
Greetings, brothers. Listen, you think your work is, I think you're doing God's work, brother. Your work is extremely invaluable, extremely.
Thank you,
and
brother.
I'd like to follow up on a couple of things. One, in particular, having to do with this recent article about this lieutenant that recently was allowed to retire after a history of sexually assaulting female counterparts in the NYPD. And unfortunately, the journalism, lazy journalism, they end with, we can't figure out why he was allowed to retire with a pension. That's because he was protected the same way Pantaleo and all the rest are protected, which allows them to go. Have also, in addition to that, you have this issue about allowing for black people coming into a space as being something contaminating. There was one person told me a story about one black firefighter integrating a firehouse in Los Angeles, California, and he was the only one, so naturally he faced, the predictable amount of racism. And one of the things he pointed out was that when it was time to eat, when he would eat food and utensils were something that was washable and reusable. He said he would eat the food, and after he cleaned the utensils, he said that the other firefighters refused to use the utensils that he used to send him a message. That's how deep this stuff is. I mean, it goes really, really deep. And you wonder why these black girls, when they do these experiments, always turns with the dolls, the so-called doll test, why they always say, well, this one, it's obvious the reason why.
Got your point, brother. Got your point, brother.
Commercials, TV, artists tells them that they're inferior or that they're less worthy,
Next caller. We got your point, brother. Thank you. We got a lot of calls, brother. Next caller.
From Brooklyn.
All right, quick question or comment, brother.
From Brooklyn, and I'm calling from Brooklyn about the incident with the counter for the swimming pool.
Right.
Because I had an incident like that when I was a 5-year-old child in school here in Brooklyn.
What?
And the teacher telling us, wow, 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 come on, my little master. Wow, 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 see who can run the faster. And I'm thinking, like, he said, run, niggas, run from after school.
for the black and Hispanic kids. So as I progress a year or two later, when I'm about 80-year-old kid, run 3 blocks from the house to the school, puffing and puffing, trying to be on time, the teacher told me to get out the chair and stand for pledge. And if you don't, I'll come and push you off the seat. So we had a debate, and that's what she did. And then when I sat in the desk, when she looked back to the front, she said, wait, nigga invent himself a seat. You know what I'm saying? So she come back there and told me, get up there. We debated that. Then she pushed me off the desk like a bag of garbage. We had a fight. Thank God it ended like that, because as an 8-year-old kid, I wasn't taking it. Although the kids told me this and that, but they didn't know that I went to the mosque every Sunday. And whatever I heard every Sunday, I put it in there the whole week until the next Sunday. You know what I'm saying? So I went to public school as a child.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
thank God mother sent them to the Muslim school at home, and that ended all of that.
Right. Okay, brother. All right. Thank you for sharing that testimony. All right. Next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Thank you.
Okay. Where you calling from? Next caller.
Good afternoon, brothers. I'm calling from Manhattan.
Okay. Hotep, sister.
Hotep. Brothers, every week we talk about what other people do to us, and I think nobody's going to respect us until we begin to make people pay. And so this particular year, I'm not wedded to politics and campaigns and voting, but this is a year that Andrew Cuomo is running for re-election for governor, and we've got to make him pay. I'm not a Cynthia Nixon person, but right now I would vote for her over Andrew Cuomo, because at least we know that she hasn't heard it, but he has. And then the other thing I want to say is we really need to support Jumaane Williams. He's a good brother, and I would really like to see him be a buffer for us with Andrew Cuomo.
All right. Thank you for your call, sister.
Well, just remember that 4 years ago when he ran for his re-election campaign, the Sharpton's camp, the National Action Network, they could have forced him to do something with respect to what happened to Eric Garner. They intentionally allowed the attention to stay on the federal government. They were asking the Obama administration all the way in Washington, D.C. to look at this case, knowing full well that Obama's administration had no history of interfering with the NYPD and its police action. And yet, you have a local governor here running, as well as the mayor, and they said nothing to them, knowing full well they could have gotten justice here locally. So it only shows you that we have elected officials and so-called leaders that are leading us astray and just confusing the issue. And that's what they always put in things, confusion. And Jumaane Williams, he does not have a great history, even though I'd rather see him in that office any day over Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo does not like black people, and he's made that clear. His father didn't like black people. He made that clear when he boasted about building all these prisons. So to that degree, I agree with you.
All right, sister, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, all I want to say is, look, we may not like the person who's running against him, but at least band together and make him pay.
I agree with that.
Black people, neither Cuomo nor Takashi will be there.
Okay.
Black people put me there. Stop doing it.
That's
okay.
right.
All right, thank you. Excellent point, sister. Thank you for your call. Next caller, work on the Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Brother Ray.
Hotep.
How you doing, Brother Ray? Brother Ray, Community Cop. I just want to say, for years they have been denying the black kids to get into those prestigious schools because they are still and always will be afraid that these little black kids coming in that school will wipe the floor. And the nerve of some shrimp fried rice eating Asians being used by whites to boycott that school so blacks can't get in there because we'll wipe the floor with them. Number two, everybody's coming out because they putting some of these folks in these immigration. But all the stuff that done happened to black folks and selling the babies on the slave plantation and this and that. And nobody never, and they doing it now. Ain't nobody said a word about it. It's all a crock.
And we have no friends.
Right.
And we are seeing it every day. We have no friends. So when they hear that history, they are so much afraid of history, they don't know what to do. Thank you.
Okay, brother.
So,
thank you.
Two quick points, Reverend. For one, they might sell shrimp fried rice. There's no evidence to prove that they eat it. They sell you certain things that they would never eat. And the other thing is that white elected officials closed down. I think the name of it was Walden. I got to ask Vernon the name of that school in Harlem. Walden, I think, was a junior high school. It was the best junior high school in the entire city, bar none. And it was producing superior students. Under A. Bean, he had it closed down. This was before Koch. A. Bean, a Jewish mayor, had it closed down and told the Harlem leaders of that day, told Dinkins and all of them, Charlie Rangel and all of them, that school has to close, and didn't give a reason, told them, and they knew what it was, and they ultimately had the school closed, and it was the best performing junior high school in the entire city.
All right, next caller. Welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Kareem from Harlem.
Okay, quick question or comment?
Yes, sir, I'm coming, brother. Listen, I just want to relate the fact that this racist SOB Trump and his Congress, all of them is SOBs, and they was doing the same thing to black people 500 years ago that they're doing to the Guatemalans and the Ecuadorians right now, separating them from their mother and their fathers and breaking up the family foundation. This nation has did to the Indians, blacks, Asians, and now the Latin people. And we as people of color should be mindful enough to come together and go up against this stuff that these crackers are still doing to our people. Why are we allowing this to keep going on after all this time, and they're doing it against all the people except white people? It's the same thing that Hitler did to the Jews when they put them in the concentration camp, and they're doing it now, and tomorrow they're going to be doing it to our damn kids. Y'all brothers keep doing a great job, and may Allah bless you.
All right, thank you for your phone call. Thank you for your call. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Brother Mike, Brother Noel, this is Uncle Sonny. How y'all doing?
Okay, hold up, brother.
Okay. Let me point it straight, brother. This school situation is planned. It's sad that it reminds me of the so-called Jews who our father helped liberate their mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers from the clutches of Hitler. And they are here in this country doing better than us, financially-wise, food-wise, shelter-wise. They get built up houses. We get subsidized houses. And these other, in the school with the North and the South and the Afghans in the schools, this is not new, number one. Number two, they don't go to our schools in the black community. And our sons and daughters went to the country to kill for white people. So these knuckleheads can come here and they showing disrespect for what the hell we have done from them, from the Jews, all up to these people. We should, brother, it is sad because I was watching the news today and they had a Negro from the Democrat crying out for these people, but yet when they come and kill us in the goddamn streets and giving us subsidized houses to live in and subsidized education, these same niggas house politicians does nothing. It is sad. Matter of fact, it was Charles Barron who brought it to the surface about the school. It wasn't de Blasio, it was Charles Barron about a month ago on news, and following him was then de Blasio came on after it brought it to the surface. But 98% of these house representatives, I don't care what level they are, they're house niggas and field niggas, and they don't do nothing for us.
All right, thank you for your call, and what you say is true, because the same passion that our elected officials have as it relates to the children of immigrants, when it just came out that this mayor, Bill de Blasio's administration, had covered up a litany of crimes against individuals that live in housing, how they were lying about lead paint inspections, how they were lying about the repairs that they were making. You didn't see the same level of passion coming from our elected officials as you do when other communities are being bombarded, whether it's from individuals or whether it's from other, public administrations. You didn't see the same level of outrage against this Bill de Blasio administration, who has victimized hundreds and hundreds of thousands of members from our community that have to live in public housing. But next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Where you calling from?
Oh, the VX.
Okay, the Bronx.
Okay, Boogie down there. And entrance exams for these schools pursuant to diversity. What about some of these city and state careers that lack diversity? That our next generation is missing out on these is because of their unreasonable hurdles to getting in that weren't there when brothers like Noel and Mike was coming on the job, and I know brothers that improved their whole family status, just by being able to get on those jobs. So if you have an academy, you get paid to teach. You should go from zero to hero when you come out of the academy. I mean, when you go into the military, you go there for less than 6 months, and you're ready to represent us, the country, on a world stage. So why not in our own local and state municipalities that our kids who are matriculating through some of these institutions have that shot at getting onto these jobs?
Right. All right.
Then you won't have scared people running around shooting people, and scared they'll know, oh, that's just, so-and-so coming down the stairs. They know how to ID that. Rikers Island in the Bronx, because you guys talk about the jails. Rikers Island is in the BX County. So even if you took all the prisoners and sent them to local jails in the 5 boroughs, Rikers Island, you mean to tell me there isn't some jail that's there that's salvageable, that you can put the Bronx prisoners in?
Right.
Because it's in the Bronx County.
Right.
You're wasting taxpayers' dollars in uprooting neighborhoods going around looking for a place to build a new jail when you have your pick of the litter if you send everybody away from Rikers Island.
Okay.
And lastly, shout out to the Bedside. Shout out to the Bedside Ambulance Corps and 100 Blacks in law enforcement and sister organizations do for self.
Okay. All right, brother, we gotta go. We gotta go, brother.
If you have black people on the job.
All right. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. We try to close up the last couple of calls. Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's the teacher from Westchester.
Okay, sister. Real quick, we wind it down.
Okay. Just wanted to say, I believe the school you're talking about, Brother Mike, is Wadley.
Wadley,
is closed,
yeah. Thank you,
but it's
sister.
back
Thank you
open.
so much.
And the bottom
Wadley,
line
not
is the
Wadley.
Bosio, he's not an education barrier, and I'll continue this on another day. Have a good one.
Okay, thank you for that.
Oh,
thank you,
well,
sister.
she said
Yeah,
Wadley.
I remember Wadley.
It's Wadley.
Yeah.
I said Walden. It's Wadley.
Next caller, welcome to Community Cop. Where you calling from?
Hello?
Where you calling from, caller?
I'm calling from Manhattan.
30 seconds. We're winding down. Quick question or comment.
Okay, I'm going to say this one time, and I'm not going to ever say this again. This is the original O.J. Calling, and black people need to boycott nationally. It's time to do it and stop talking about it. Let's boycott nationally.
All right.
Shut these stores down so we can get loans and get them in our own neighborhood.
All right. Excellent point, sister. Excellent point. Economic sanctions, economic boycotts. All right. Closing comments?
Well, yeah, okay. I see they stopped the board, so we got some time to stretch out a little bit. Let me first of all thank our sister teacher from Westchester. It is Wadley, and that was a school that white elected officials were concerned about because it permeated excellence. It was sending blacks to the prestigious high schools and on the colleges. That's the school that they went to the black community and told their gang of four that ran Harlem that they got to close that school down. It was Wadley Junior High School. Thank you so much for that, sis. That's the school. And certainly to the other caller who just called in and gave Peter Liang an excuse. You're verifying his excuse, which is dangerous. Do not say that a police officer is scared to walk up a stairwell to do a vertical in a public housing because you're giving him a built-in excuse. Let's not do that. That's dangerous, and I know that wasn't your intent, but don't give them that excuse because if they're afraid to walk upstairs, they shouldn't be on the job. That's tantamount to a firefighter saying that he's afraid of a fire. So once he was at a fire, he just ran the other way and allowed the other guys to do the job because he was afraid of the fire or afraid of smoke. It doesn't make sense. So in any event, just want to alert all roads should lead to CEMOTAP this Saturday, June 23rd. They're going to be honoring Black Music Month, and they're going to have some musicians, spoken word artists. You need to be there. They having singers from Harlem and other places. It's a long list of names, but I'll just say go to CMOTAC, 13505 Rockaway Boulevard, 2 p.m. this Saturday to honor Black Music Month and the spoken word. All of that will all be, and you'll get a nice, beautiful meal at CMOTAC. We want to thank always Sister Keisha Forrest of Straight Black Pride, and certainly Sister Filet from the Million Woman's Movement, and Anne Marie Thomas, a retired school teacher in New York City that's always sending me interesting articles. Black man, black woman, protect the black child, accept your own and be yourself. And
Brother raised a good point as it relates to the agencies in New York City, some of the prime agencies, in particular the fire department and the police department. Under this administration, number of black police officers has dwindled to all-times low. We're getting numbers like 6 and 7% graduating from the police academy. This is going to affect the police department for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
That's right.
So this mayor is not a friend of African Americans. The Asian community, as we see in these schools, do not believe in integrating with you. They believe in integrating with other folks that they chase around the whole city. So we have no friends, as the brother said. And as Michael said, it's not fear. These police officers don't walk all around the country, don't walk in our community and respond to us out of fear. They respond out of hatred. I've seen it up close and personal. When they walk through our community, they walk with their chests out, flexing, being very disrespectful, not meek and humble as if they really had fear. It's not fear that they have of members of our community. It's hatred, unmitigated, unapologetic hatred that's based on racial hatred, racial discrimination, and white supremacy. On behalf